notes, and I want to just kind of discuss the three separate branches of government in ancient Athens. After that, then I'll kind of introduce what you're going to work on today, and then we'll have a quiz on Tuesday, actually. So the first group we're going to talk about was the Council of 500. So these are the answers of the notes that you should have. All right, the Council of 500 was chosen each year, so annually, in a lottery draw, which means all citizens' names would be placed in a lottery draw. They would be pulled out, and then 500 of those individuals would become the Council of 500. They would meet. They would meet at the Bouleuterion, right? That's the actual building, right? There because they were called the Boule, right? They would meet at the Bouleuterion. And what they did is they made decisions about the day-to-day affairs, all right? So they kind of controlled like every kind of aspect of kind of how the money was spent, right? How could you, what are the laws, what are the customs? They would draft a lot of legislations. They would decide on the questions that needed to be voted in the assembly. So these councils would kind of say like, what is the important things that we need to talk about that are affecting our day-to-day operations and that are kind of affecting the whole climate of the country, okay, or I guess the city-state. It's Athens. It's important to know that each citizen, so we'll talk about this more next week, but each citizen can only serve 2 times in their life. Okay, so what that happens is we're starting to see some limitations on power. Because remember, we think about the road to democracy. They've had a lot of monarchs, they've had a lot of tyrants. This is now democracy. They want the power of the people, so they don't want one person to have too much power. So in the council that can have a lot of influence, you can only serve 2 times in your life, right? So you met at the Boule, and you had a variety of meetings, right? So it's a full-time job, right? So you might meet every single day, but also you might have like a smaller council that meets every 50 days. Sorry, it's not 50. A council of 50 that can meet at the drop of a hat if you need it. All right. So council of 500, right? They work all year round. It's in a lottery form, and they kind of decide what you vote on. Now the assembly, right? The assembly is made up of the citizens. All right. Any male citizen over the age of 18 could participate in the assembly, and at the assembly, they debated and voted on issues. And as I said, it included all citizens of Athens. It was actually the duty of all citizens to vote, right? That meant that it could be punishable if you weren't present at the things in order to actually vote on an issue. Because what had happened is the Council of 500 would say, let's debate this topic, and then they would take it to the assembly, and every single person would have their say. That's because it is direct democracy, right? All the people vote. They had the final say on the decisions from the Council of 500. So let's say the Council of 500 wants to do something, the people can actually shut that down, right? They met 40 times a year, so every 8 to 10 days, obviously, and they debated on these big issues. You had to have a minimum of 6,000 people to have a legal vote, right? So think about even our small Kit Kat exercise, where we had direct democracy, how hard it was to even manage what? We had 12 people, 11, 10 people? So now they have 6,000 people that they had to vote, and typically they would have it with a show of hands, right? Already we might be seeing some flaws with this form of democracy. So basically, how were decisions made? Well, first of all, the Council of 500, right, these are the 500, at the Bouleuterion, the council decided the agenda. So they basically said, this is what we're going to debate, this is what we're going to talk about, and which issues should be brought forward on a vote. The assembly debated and actually voted on the issue. So they decide what we're talking about. They are deciding, the assembly is deciding, what is the outcome. So these are the rights and responsibilities of Athenians. You'll need this slide for today, right? So remember, it is a right and a privilege to hold the citizenship. So because it is a right and a privilege, you must exercise your right to vote. It's not dependent on wealth. It's dependent on if you were born in Athens, citizenship is. All Athenian citizens can debate and have the freedom to vote, right? All Athenian citizens are expected to be educated, have military, pay taxes, serve, and it's a privilege and responsibility, right? They must vote, and it could be punishable. The last branch that we're going to talk about is the courts. So you had the magistrates and you have the jurors. The magistrate, they were citizens and they were officers of the court. They would listen to complaints, they would set fines and punishment, and send cases to trial, right? The jurors, on the other hand, uh, were citizens who would decide the outcome of the trial. And depending on the size of the trial, you could have anywhere between 500 to 15,000, 1,500 people, right? So let's put that in there so you can see the number, 500 to 1,500, depending on the size of the trial, okay? So you have a long jury, and they would listen to basically the defendant and the plaintiff, right? They would listen to both sides, and they would get to decide who was guilty and who was innocent, okay? So the magistrate here, they signed on as 1-year terms, right? They were chosen by lottery, just like in the Council of 500. They're chosen by random, as you can see here, for 1-year term. The jurors were chosen the day of the trial. Okay, so what they're trying to do is they're trying to be fair, right? They're trying to make it so that you don't have only one family or one person who runs the entire magistrate, because they only can do it for a year and it's random. Any male citizen over the age of 30 could be chosen, and then for jurors, I'll specify that, jurors, it is a lottery on the day of the trial. All right. So in this video, if you clicked on it, right, you would just basically what it said is, what's the difference between direct democracy and representative? Anyone who wished to attend the assembly they could address citizens or propose a law. Representatives, in a representative democracy, you could vote one person in to voice their beliefs. So in direct democracy in Athens, right, anyone can propose a law, anyone can address citizens, anyone can attend assembly. Whereas representatives, you vote in one person to do that for you. The role of the boule member, that's the same thing as the assembly. They set the agenda and evaluate proposals. The jurors and the magistrate, they handle all legal matters, right? They were chosen by lottery. So only very few things were actually elected in, all right? And that was usually the head officers and generals. It was because they believed they required expertise in that field, right? So what aristocrat means, as we learned in the video, is it's ruled by the best. So generals are the best military minds, so of course they elected it. They didn't want some random lottery draw and get a pottery maker who to be the general of the entire Athenian army, right? They said they needed expertise in that field. Women, slaves, and foreigners cannot participate because they were denied full citizenship. Only the citizens of Athens could vote and debate. But women and foreigners could, when they go to the agora, which is the marketplace, they could influence what the people debated on. They could say, hey, have you thought about this, right? So they can influence somebody. They couldn't be present for the actual thing. So here we have decisions in ancient Athens, and here we have our summary. This wouldn't be bad to review. This is going to help you on your quiz for sure. All right?